Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video and joining in on what's really nothing more than just accumulating some numbers. And it has to do with weeping willow. So let me give you the context and then we'll get to shooting. A few weeks back, my friend Broken Feather had asked me a question: how does weeping willow compare to Pacific willow? So I went and grabbed all my paperwork, because I've got it all separated into different categories, and lo and behold, I didn't have any standalone numbers for weeping willow, so I couldn't answer his question. So the best way I can answer this question right now is to do some shooting with some weeping willow and see how those numbers do compare. Now, before we get loaded up and shoot, you should recognize that for me, when I first started testing weeping willow, I didn't have a chronograph, but it was dirty. It shot well enough, but it was on the dirty side of things. So what I did since then, and the weeping willow that I have right now has also got dextrin in it. It was acting as a binder, 4, 5, 6 years ago when I first started learning how to make black powder. Everybody on the internet suggested using dextrin and let that act as a binder. And then I came across another young feller in a video that got rid of the dextrin because it was too dirty for shooting in a black powder muzzle loader. And he went and just added an extra gram of sulfur and just let that act as the binder. So that's what I've been doing. Okay, if you've been with this channel long enough, you'll know that my formula is actually 76, 15, 11. But that 76, when I get a new batch of potassium nitrate, I weigh out 76 grams, and then I set it in the dashboard of my truck and let it dry down to draw out all the moisture, and then I just compensate for that. And it runs right at 76 grams. You dry it out and it gets down to like 75.3, 75.4, good enough. Okay, so that's why my formula is 76, 15, 11. Okay, and that extra gram of sulfur, I let that act as a binder, and as most of you recognize, it makes a pretty good pan powder also. So anyhow, the weeping willow that I'm going to be shooting right now is 75, and it's a true 75, not 76 dried out. It's 75, 15, 11, because I went back through all my weeping willow, separated 100 grams of it, and then I added an extra gram of sulfur. Now, I suspect this is still going to be dirty because there's still dextrin in this batch of gunpowder. And for a flintlock shooter, dextrin fouls up the touch hole very, very quickly. So I don't know what to expect with that. But anyhow, I'm going to be shooting 80 grains by weight. And that's where the 80 grains by weight rests. The powder measure, I'm guessing probably about 85, 86 grains. It's about normal for a light gunpowder. So I'm going to get loaded up, and we'll get some numbers, and we'll go back into the shop and see how they compare to Pacific willow. I do have my prescription glasses on, and I am using my homemade 4F in the flash pan. What is that, 1293? So in case you haven't figured it out, there's just a slight breeze. Correction, it was 1243, and there's that first patch. It's pretty clean compared to. All right, get loaded up and get another number. 1627. That's a little more like it. What I'll probably do is take a 6 shot and get rid of that first shot. All right, get reloaded and get another number. $16.31. I did not find the previous patch. Let's see if I can find this one. Looks like I'll have 2 to retake. 36 feet a second. Go figure, right? So I found that patch, and surprisingly, it is clean. Very clean. It's even cleaner than some of the gunpowder that I'm making now. All right, get loaded up, get another number, and hopefully I can get a good recording of a number this time. $12.95. All right, let me see if I can find that patch. Well, I found that patch, and as you can tell, they're not shredding up, are they? But it's clean. You might want to know how it is. That was the 5th shot. The 4th shot went down the barrel pretty easy, but I could tell it got hung up about that far down the barrel. But I have no complaints. It's just not powerful like my other black powders are. All right, let me see if I can get some better numbers for you. $16.37. Found that patch, and I dare say it's clean, and it's not shredded. So I think one of the reasons why the patches are shredding, as far as I'm concerned, is because I've got one hell of a spin on them. I mean, I'm shooting, 1,600 feet per second, and the patches are not shredding. I can't see it too much sun reflecting in the view screen. That one hit that little protective cover I have over my chronograph. It's a good thing I made that. There's that patch. It's clean. Once again, I say this is cleaner than the stuff that I'm making now. But as you can tell, it's not all that powerful. And in fact, I would say it's really underpowered. And that's 80 grains by weight, guys. But there's that patch. Let me see if I can get one more number so I can have 5 numbers to compare. And I'll give you my synopsis. All right, just so that you can see, I've got it pushed down with my wooden ramrod. And that's where she stopped. Okay, so let me work with it for a minute. And you can see how much more further down it went. All right, get this one downrange, and then I think what I'm going to do, just for the hell of it, I'm going to readjust my powder measure for about 100 grains and see what that gets for a velocity. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I double checked it with my range rod, and with my range rod I can tell that I have just as much pressure on that powder charge as I do with my ramrod, my wooden ramrod. I pulled that one too. 3. Okay, that was 1590. I found that patch, and maybe I didn't pull the shot. I've got a cardboard backing, as you saw previously, and there's no additional bullet holes in the cardboard itself. But when I show you the target at the very end, you'll see that just about everything is one hole. So anyhow, there's that patch. And they're not shredded. Alright, let's get this 100 grain shot downrange and see what kind of numbers that's going to produce. Well, a lot of smoke, but it doesn't look like it recorded anything but like maybe 31 feet a second. Let's retake that. Maybe I'll move the chronograph back a couple of feet. Yeah, 31 feet per second, but I can tell you something from an observation standpoint. Patches are starting to shred. I'm going to see what this one does. I'm going to retake that shot, see if I get a better number. But if the next patch, if I find it and it's starting to shred, then that, for me, answers a question. My patches are shredding because of the tremendous velocity I'm getting out of my homemade black powder. $18.29, and as you can see, shot number 10, I had to vent pick it, had to nap the flint, but let's see if I can't find that patch, pull the target, and I'll see you in the shop.
They went in the front yard now.
Okay, you might be interested in knowing the temperature gauge right now here in my shop is 78 degrees and it's 11:38 in the morning. For those that really have to, live and die by the numbers. Me, I really don't care. But I do want to make a comment before I show you the last two patches. One of them I've already shown out there, and I did recover this final patch, okay? Years ago, when I first started making black powder and watching what everybody does as far as homemade black powder, like a lot of you, we come across the channel Everything Black Powder, Jake. At that time, I was following how he determined clean or dirty black powder, okay? And it was take 3 shots, run a wet patch, pull it out and say, wow, look how dirty that is, and then show how many consecutive patches you had to run down the barrel to clean it out. That's not how I determine dirty black powder. Decades ago, when I was competing with my flintlock, I could run an entire range, 20 shots without having any loading issues. And that's with GoX or even Elephant black powder, okay? And for the most part, we all think that that black powder is dirty. But that's not how I determine clean or dirty powder. I determine it by how many shots can I actually get out of that flintlock or any of my other guns before I really have to run a brush down that barrel. And as you can see, I got the shot number 11, I think it was, 10 or 11. The underside of my flint was dirty. Just wiping it off with a little bit of saliva didn't clean it. I actually had to go back and nap it, and then the following shot, the powder went off in the flash pan, but the charge didn't. I had to prick it. So for me, right there would determine a dirty powder at 10 shots. Now I showed you shot number 10 was 100, 100 grains, but guessing at my powder measure was set at about 108, 109 grains, maybe close to 110 grains. Okay, that was that patch. Then I took one more shot and I found that patch, and as you can see, it's a lot darker than all the rest. And you can't see it here in the shade, but there's little cut marks right where the landing grooves would be. So this actually burnt through. Okay, and like I said, you can't see it in the dark, but those little cut marks are there. Okay, so 10 shots, she's getting a little on the dirty side. I would guess that if I were to go out and do a rendezvous with it, about 10 shots, 11 shots, I'd have to run a brush down it and clean it up. Okay, so getting that out of the way, I got rid of all those bad low numbers. Oh, and by the way, when I went through the numbers, that first shot I took with 100 grains, it did record it. For some reason, it showed a low number on the view screen, but I went back and reviewed it. That number was recorded at 1777. And then the next shot came out at, what was it, 1829? So as you can see, I had to bump it up to 105, 106, 107 grains to even get close to the 1800 feet per second mark. But throwing out all those numbers and keeping 6 numbers, I recorded 6 numbers. The 6-shot average was 1629 with a spread of, let's see here, with a spread of 60. Okay, and my first shot, as you can recall, what was it, 1237, so I threw that one out, and then the next shot was 1627. Okay, and just so that you guys can see, when I say that I've been tracking all my numbers, these are all numbers with different gunpowders that I've tested. And I've separated them from, single source charcoal first shot, single source charcoal average 5-shot, single source charcoal first shot over 1800 feet a second, 5-shot average over 1800 feet a second. Then I separated into the lowest spread up to 50, so I'm tracking all my spreads. And Osage Orange is the best. That's a single source charcoal at 18 feet a second. And then number 2 is my peanut shell. And then I separated everything from 51 to 100 feet per second, my blended charcoals, and all of the specific gravities that I've been tracking with these gunpowder. So I've paid real close attention to my numbers, so that if somebody asks me a question about it, I can refer to the numbers. Okay, and how does the Pacific Willow compare to the Weeping Willow? Well, first shot with Pacific Willow, 80 grains by weight, 1867 feet per second. 5-shot average, 1811 with a spread of 93. So as we can see from this test, Weeping Willow is a pretty weak gunpowder. Now I know the guys that repack model rocket engines, they love the Weeping Willow. But going down a muzzle loading barrel, 80 grains by weight, it's pretty weak compared to Pacific Willow. We went from a 6-shot average of 1629 with Weeping Willow with a 5-shot average of Pacific Willow 1811. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not even to be compared. But as I mentioned earlier, when I first started testing, my homemade black powder, Weeping Willow was the first black powder I ever made, and I even acknowledged, it's 4 or 5 years now, that it grouped good, but not having a chronograph, I don't know what the velocities were. So here's 11 shots. They're all right there. And I marked off the cardboard, or I made a mental note of the holes that were outside of this paper plate so that I could determine if I goofed. But that's all 11 shots right there. Weeping Willow shoots good. I mean, you can't complain about that group. I mean, if you do complain about that group, something's wrong. You must be smoking something. So anyhow, thanks for watching this video. William, I hope this answers your question as a comparison between Pacific Willow and Weeping Willow. Weeping Willow is very, very weak. But once again, you know, it groups really well. It really does. There's no flyers or anything on that. So anyhow, thanks for watching. We're going to finish getting packed up for the Raton Santa Fe Trail Rendezvous. If you happen to be there, I'll be there, and we'll look forward to meeting with you. And if you have any questions, I'll have all these numbers and everything with me. I'm not, at this point in time, I'm not planning on putting on a class on making homemade black powder. But I'm going to bring this stuff just in case. But if anybody is curious, you know, and you happen to be there and you're watching this and you want to see the numbers that I've accumulated over the past several years, I've got them. All right, thanks for watching, and everybody have a great day. And as typical, I got a gun to go clean. Bye.